Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of All Things MSP Live. We are getting close to the holidays. I hope you are getting ready for all of that. Hopefully, you're getting some time off. I know that many of us, as solopreneurs or entrepreneurs or whatever, uh, if you're an MSP in this space, it's hard to take time off. A lot of times, this time of year can be weird, right? I know you guys have experienced it where sometimes it's feast because everybody's trying to spend money before the end of the year. Sometimes it's famine because they're not trying to spend any money. So it can get weird, but I do hope that you are getting some time off during the holidays so that you can enjoy it with your family. Now, of course, I do have to check and make sure that everything is working properly. So let's just double check. All right, LinkedIn appears to be working. Let's mute that. Let's check LinkedIn. I mean, Facebook. See, that's what happens. These head colds. All right, and obviously Facebook is having some issues tonight. But it looks like we are live there, so that's awesome. And of course, last but not least, YouTube. Perfect. Okay, so a couple of things for tonight. Number one, the drink of choice is a brand new one I picked up this weekend, Weldon Mills Rockfish. This is a 80 proof whiskey from the just about the border between North Carolina and Virginia, and it's a good sipping whiskey. I mean, it's just one of those things. I like a good, not overbearing, but hey, it's fun. We only spent like $200 on alcohol on our way back from Virginia this weekend, but found a new distillery that I really do like. So we're probably going to be back there. All right, a couple of things before we get started. Number one, tonight's episode is also, if you haven't heard, we do have merchandise. So, as an MSP, obviously you're not going to sponsor the show, but you might want to pick up some merchandise. So, head on over to atmsp.threadless.com and you can pick out, anything from a t-shirt to a hoodie to, yeah, there's actually a puzzle on there. It's pretty boring. I wouldn't buy it. But, if you want to support us, there is merch. All right. And then that reset my counter. So who knows where we're at? Actually, we are right on time. So let's get this crazy thing started. All right, welcome back to All Things MSP. This, is going to be a fun episode because I think it's always fun, especially when I bring on an MSP. Vendors are great. We love our vendors. However, this is a community for MSPs. I was an MSP. Most of you know I work in as a vendor in the channel now, but this is my passion. This is the project that keeps me going, and I really do enjoy when we have MSPs on here because let's face it, you guys are the ones out there doing it every single day. And so what I thought we would do today is come up with something that is very applicable to what's coming up, and that's 2024, right? You've probably seen the posts in the group about some advice that I've been giving, some things just to think about as we move into 2024. Actually, I have a new topic coming up tomorrow, and I probably should have been prepared so that you could know what that topic is, but you'll find out tomorrow. So without further ado, let me bring in our guest tonight. Tom, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I have whiskey. I can't be doing bad.
I have whiskey upstairs. I actually had a margarita earlier because today has been one of those days. So I thought I would not drink during the show because it would be off the rails.
Well, for me, I'm just calling it medicine tonight.
Okay, that works. I mean, I could. No, I'll be good.
All right. So your wife is in the house, by the way. Not your house.
Oh,
She's in our house tonight.
well, she's in my house too.
Yeah.
At least I think she is. She could be at the bar watching. I don't.
And we also have Degley here tonight.
Nice.
So
Hey, Degley.
Degley's a frequent watcher of the channel. If you're here tonight, go ahead and comment in one of the many places that we have for you to comment. We're running on Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as YouTube tonight. And by the way, let me know because Restream has come out with some new options, like maybe live streaming to Twitter and live streaming to Instagram, which I'm not sure about, but if you guys really want it, um, I'll look into it.
Instagram would be interesting.
Yeah, I've never really seen live video so much on Instagram, but who knows?
Yeah.
Because they didn't set the expectation for it.
Right.
See what I did there?
No.
So Tom, I mean, obviously, I know you. We've
Yep.
known each other for quite a few years. But go ahead and introduce yourself and let other people know who you are and what you do.
Okay, Tom Wyant, Wyant Technologies, Traverse City, Michigan. I've been in this industry on the IT service provider side since '96. First IT job in '94. So I'm 29 years into this. I think I'm less than a month away from my start date for my first IT job.
Wow.
So I've done a lot of stuff. I've had my wife and I have had a company for 21 years. We just passed 21 years, and we're an MSP. I mean, TSP, MSP.
Whatever you want to
Um,
call us these days.
yeah, I mean, there's so many different terms now, but we've been doing the MSP TSP thing for, oh man, 16 years, I think.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. No, wait a minute. Was 2007? So somewhere in there. Uh, at some point in 2007, we said, we should probably try to be proactive about this. And then here we are. So my joke is that I've tried to kill it for 20 years and it won't die. So,
Well, I mean, that is one of the things with this business, right? It is such a good business model
mhm.
that unless you're really doing something wrong or you just have no idea what you're doing, it's pretty easy to keep it going and keep a decent business rolling in.
Just take care of people. I mean,
Right.
if you take care of people, most of the time they're happy. I mean, you're going to run into people that if you take care of them, they're still not happy. Those people are few and far between, and just take better care of the people that are happy and get rid of the people that aren't.
Right. And that could be a whole nother show on who to keep and who to get rid of and how to get rid of them.
Yes.
But
That's the hardest part is firing people. I mean,
right. And there is a
I
way to avoid that, right?
yeah.
And it's one of the things we wanted to talk about tonight, which is setting expectations.
Yep.
So as an MSP, there's lots of things that you should spell out in terms of your services. What are some of the things that you guys spell out specifically in terms of expectations to kind of make sure you're getting the right type of customer?
When we talk to prospects now, when I meet with the prospects, we tell them flat out the only way we're doing this is if you're on board. It's a monthly fee, or I mean, if you want to pay up front, whatever, but we are your IT department. And for the longest time, I took anything. It was green. If it could fog a mirror, they were a client. Um, and now we just tell them this is what we do. This is what is expected of you. It's going to be monthly. We're your IT department. Everything comes to us. Don't touch anything. Which sometimes you get some pushback, but the reason for this is if anything breaks, we've got it. You don't have to worry about it. And we still have a handful of break fix clients, and it's difficult with them because we've told them, hey, you're not managed. You're not a managed client. I can't drop everything for you because you're not a managed client. It's going to be a week. And they're like, what? And I've got people to take care of. We told you this. We had a discussion. This is how things work now. There we go. So if you're upfront with them and you're upfront with the prospects and converting, upfront with the people you're trying to convert, they will complain. They may complain. Some of them come over. Uh-oh. I lost audio, or you did.
No, you didn't. I did because I had to cough while you were talking.
Okay.
That's why these are casual.
Yes.
So with those break fix clients, do you still try to periodically go and have some type of business review type meeting and say, just as a reminder, because you guys are on break fix, this is the situation?
We will, or I will, because I'm doing it now. I'll talk to them. Hey, we are moving in this direction. At some point, we won't be able to service you. We will help you find somebody. We will help transition you. But if you don't want to come over to our way of doing this, there's a couple months. This is the conversation I've had lately. In a couple months, we're not going to be the people. We're not going to be your people. I've tried over the years. Some of them, we've converted a bunch. I've got
Right.
a few holdouts, but they're holdouts because it's my fault. It's our fault. We've done such a good job of taking care of them that they're like, why would I pay you for this when you already drop everything for us? And it's like, okay, I'll take the blame for that. I'm trying to be more. I'm trying to set my boundaries better.
Yeah, yeah, and that's important as well. Now, have you gone the route of, raising their prices to the point where, because here's my opinion on this, by the way, is that they cost you more money because they're not managed. So there's actually good justification for raising their price.
Yes, we've raised our hourly rate a couple times. It's going to go up again. Uh, and I'm kind of hoping that at some point they'll just say why. Most of the time they just go okay, which is okay. You're satisfied with just getting service whenever, and we're not going to help you when things go bad. You're going to wait, whatever else. What is it going to take to break this so we actually get into a relationship where we take care of things and you're happier and you don't have to worry about the stuff? Because I had a client earlier this year. Their server died. They ran off their backup appliance for a month. We replaced the server, got everything migrated, but it just it was slow, and they complained, and I'm like, you're not managed.
Yeah.
So it's at times it's frustrating, and I hate to be the bad guy, but times are changing. It's
Yeah.
it's not 2003 anymore. I can't slap some antivirus on there and say, hey, have fun. We've got to watch our butts.
Well, in my opinion, there's a couple of things that have changed. Obviously, risk, like you just mentioned, has changed. It's a risk to the MSP to not have clients that are fully managed. But also, you know, when you and I got into this, computers were almost still a nice to have,
Yep.
right? Because we both, by the way, those dates match up with mine. Actually, I started a little bit earlier than you, believe it or not. Um, and they're just more critical to the day-to-day, literally minute to minute operations of a business. And so it doesn't make sense to, as a business owner, to me, to take the risk of that kind of downtime.
Yep. It's I don't understand how you can run a business without having somebody there somebody's got your back. Because at some point, if you don't have a relationship with an IT provider where they've got everything covered, you're going to be out of you're not going to work for however many days. If you
Right.
lose a server, maybe you got a backup. How long is it going to take to get that company over there to restore your backup or fix whatever's missing What if you have a server failure? How long is it going to take to get parts?
Yeah.
And and I don't understand how the companies today still do it, because I know that if we didn't have our systems, and we host the software that runs our company is hosted in my office. If I lose a server, we're we're in trouble. And I got backups. I mean, we are our own MSP, but it's going to be painful for a bit while we spin everything back up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand how you can or not have a relationship with a company where you know that somebody's going to have your back.
Yeah. So Degley just mentioned, um, that's absolutely true, Eric, in terms of what I was talking about in terms of the business criticality of IT. However, for some reason, IT infrastructure is still an afterthought for small businesses.
Yep.
Now, I would ask this question of you, and I would ask it of anybody who's listening in. Please comment in the comments. Um, is it the MSP's fault a lot of times that we are not talking about how business critical these things are?
Yes and no. Uh, yes, I think it. So in my case, I think it's my fault if I don't tell you exactly what's going on and how important your IT infrastructure is to you. It's my fault for saying, "Oh yeah, we can do this," but at the same time, it's their fault because even if I do come in and say, "Look, if this thing dies, you're screwed," most of the time they're going to say, "Yeah, we haven't had a failure." So as long as I'm upfront and say, "Look, this is very important. If this goes down, you're not making any money." Is that acceptable to you? How much of a loss is acceptable to you? And let's decide whether it's worth having that conversation about whether you'd rather have us manage everything and what that's going to cost you. Because if you're going to lose 30 grand over a week and it's going to cost you 30 grand over the course of a year to make sure this doesn't happen, or you're going to cost you 15 grand, depending on the company,
Right.
are you going to come out ahead in this scenario?
Yeah, and I think it's very hard, especially in the small to medium sized business space, right, to convince these people to buy that kind of insurance
Yep.
unless they've been through it.
Yep. Usually, in my experience, the companies that have had a failure, they're the ones who have no problem paying for support. Once things die, they realize, oh crap, I have to make sure this doesn't happen again. And then they will do whatever needs to be done to make sure it doesn't. Rarely do I have a client that suffers a failure that then doesn't want to do it. I've got a couple. Um, and okay, but next time this happens, we're not going to be there when this happens. We're going to be doing something else because people pay us to do something else. We'll get to you. So if
Right.
that's not acceptable, we can talk about what it's going to cost for you to have us there at the drop of a hat.
Right. And that's what they're paying for managed services for, right? Part of what they're paying for is for the you to be able to staff up, right? To be
Yep.
able to be there as their full-time IT department. And that's
Yep.
really what it is. They're getting either part-time, you call us, we're for lack of a better word, a plumber.
Yep.
Something breaks, we come out and fix it as soon as we're done getting all the clients that are already in the queue taken care of.
Have you seen what plumbers charge lately?
Fortunately, I have not because I'm not a half bad plumber myself.
Uh, I actually had a plumber. I had two of them here for a couple hours today, and it was $2,700. I think that we were here for about 6 hours and redid a run. And then we got a quote to add another bathroom, and it was $5,700. So in some cases, the plumbers are more expensive than we are.
Yeah.
I, it's amazing, and I know that the car dealerships in town charge more per hour than most of the IT companies do.
Yeah, which really I think kind of speaks to the race to the bottom that we've kind of seen over the last couple of years, which
Mm-hmm.
is really bad for this industry.
Yes.
And I think it's because a lot of what we do on the day to day, making sure antivirus is running, making sure that alerts aren't, going off that need to be paid attention to, things like that are things that are more or less a commodity. And
Yep.
the hardware is a commodity. What's not a commodity is the service, right? The knowledge and the capability and the business acumen to know how to say, you know, this is what your business does. These are the technologies out there that can help.
Yep. It's oh, where was I going with this? Um I've already lost it. But it's oh, I know what it was. It's the joke about the guy who walks in with a hammer and he smacks one spot on a motor and it takes off and he
Yep.
bills them 20 grand and they go, $1 was hitting him with a hammer and 19,999 was knowing where to hit it.
Yep.
That's us. That's the IT providers of the world. When things go wrong, somebody is going to know where to hit it with a hammer.
Yep.
If you do it well, then word gets around and you just keep going. And you're talking about race to the bottom. That's one of the things I've been fighting against, telling people, my peers, stop charging so little. You have
Yep.
a value. You are worth something. Charge what you're worth.
Yep.
Just make sure you do a damn good job.
Yeah. That's it comes down to service because at the end of the day, the rest of it's a commodity. The differentiator is your service. And that's where, it's like selling Office 365. An MSP is never going to make money selling 365. What they're
Yep.
going to make money at is managing it better than the next guy
Yep.
or
If
gal.
you know how to secure it, if you know how to keep the people out, that's worth a lot.
Right.
Because in my experience, there are a lot of people that want in. So go ahead and if you buy your 365 and you just throw it up there and you don't have MFA installed and you're using crap passwords, which now I guess you really can't do it anymore. At some point, you're in trouble.
Yep.
So hire somebody who knows what the hell they're doing and make it work right.
So speaking of some of that stuff, we did have a comment from Janice.
Oh, geez.
Our job is to educate. So what are some of the things that you guys do to educate clients to help them to understand the risk and all of that?
So we do your standard security awareness training with the clients. We make sure they're doing the training. I did a presentation for a client at the beginning of the month where I was like, "Hey guys, you need to get your training caught up," and I explained why. I explained we've had two clients suffer business email compromises, and it was because the user gave their password away. And one of them approved MFA. So we caught it, no damage, but it's like this is what happens if you don't pay attention, if you don't do your training. We had another company in town. One company suffered an email breach, emailed another company that they were business partners with, and the other company wired $280,000 somewhere.
Mm.
So not our clients, thank goodness. But we talk about security. We talk, the security awareness training. You've got to do the training. I talked to them about this you got to look out for. I've sent emails out with videos that I've made explaining things. When we had the first business email compromise, I did a video on it and explained this is the website, this is all wrong. And it's helped. I believe it's helped. But you really won't know when, I mean, if people don't get breached, great. But, how do we force them to do the training? Beg, I guess.
Well, you know what? There was I don't bring up vendors a lot, but because, this specific circumstance, um I was talking to Breach Secure Now. And they've gone
Mhm.
and they've actually gamified a lot of their end user training for that, which I think is interesting.
That is who we use. That is who we use, and I need to get caught up. So do as I say, not as I do. Um, but the users that I talk to that are doing it, they enjoy the training, so it must be working for them. A few people that don't do it, we yell at them, and they get caught up.
Yeah. So the other thing that's happened, and McKenna mentions that It's no different than having car insurance, home insurance, etc. We hope we never have to use it, but we know in the back of our minds it's there when and if we need it. Cybersecurity insurance or paying for an MSP is no different, and a business won't realize the importance of it until it's too late. Absolutely true. And I think one of the things that makes MSPs more relevant today is the fact that cyber threats have increased. And there is a greater risk of something really bad going wrong. Because when we just had servers crashing to worry about, backup was an easy way to remediate that. And as long as you were with a reputable backup company, you had decent backups and you could recover. That's not the case today, necessarily.
Nope. If they get in, the first thing that a hacker goes after is the backups. If you've got good backups that are disconnected from the network, air gapped, whatever you want to call it, you've got a chance of restoring. But the question is, how long have they been in there? Because most of the time, if your network is breached and all the data is ransomed, they've been in there a while. It's usually months.
Right.
So how far are you going back? How much data are you going to lose? Um, the thing that scares me is, with all the technology we have, we can see what's going on. How close are we to, somebody's going to bypass all those tools? I read the other day that they've bypassed Sentinel-1 through Microsoft Defender. So we're just playing whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
You know,
But it's also a game of, they're going to go after the low-hanging fruit first.
Yeah. If the users are trained, if you've got the right security tools and processes in place, you're going to be tougher to crack than somebody that doesn't.
Yep.
And the old adage was, why would they come after me? I'm just a small business. You're going to pay to get your stuff back.
Well,
and you're not going to be big enough for the FBI to care. That's the big thing. The FBI is looking for a certain amount of loss. They may talk to you, but they're probably not going to go out and arrest whoever breached your network and ransomed all your data, unless you're huge.
right. Well, it's economies of scale, right? And what's happened is on the threat actor side, they've been able to automate a lot of this. And so it costs them very little to go after small businesses now because they can without a lot of work. But on the other side, you're right. The FBI, the insurance companies, all of those large entities don't have that automation to be able to scale down their services to help you out. And that's, by the way, I think this is one of the reasons why MSPs, local MSPs, will remain relevant, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't have that level of service from a big company that doesn't understand that individual business.
Yep. The number of acquisitions in the industry is kind of fun. I get emails every day asking if I want to sell, and I used to ignore them. Now I just reply and say no. So stop emailing me. I'm sure I'll get more. But I've heard horror stories about the companies that sell out to bigger companies and then the level of service drops. Somebody's making money, but if you're not getting taken care of, what's the point of having a big company, servicing your stuff? It's an interesting. We're in an interesting world. I mean, we're as MSPs, we're trying to automate more, and the bad guys are way past us with automation.
Yeah.
And the amount of data they have, and the lookups they can do, they know who I am. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they know where I live and everything else. I'm on the internet. I'm on my webpage. I'm on all social media stuff like that. All of that stuff is in a database somewhere, and they're trying to find a way to get past all the defenses I've got. It's the same with everybody now.
Yeah, it's a matter of risk, and Degley's pointing out too. There's still businesses that won't buy cyber insurance, and until it becomes mandatory, and I think at some point that might happen. It's it's interesting because it's one of those things that I'm not sure they can regulate. I don't know that they can force you to have insurance um, for every business. I think for some they can, like they do with like unemployment insurance, right?
Hmm. You've got the compliance areas, FTC, HIPAA, CMMC, where they're basically telling you this is what you have to have. And some of those have teeth and some of them don't. HIPAA is one of my favorite to bring up. There's really no teeth unless you get breached. Nobody's driving around going, "Are you HIPAA compliant?"
Right.
Nobody's doing it. Now, if you have a breach, all of a sudden they're going to be like, "Are you HIPAA compliant?" You're going to say, "Well," they're going to say, "Nope, fine." So, you're going to pay some money. Um, CMMC, if you want to do business with the DoD, you're going to be compliant. You have to prove you are compliant. FTC safeguards, there are some teeth there, but it's not quite, they're not forcing reporting yet. I think they're getting there. And it's
Yeah.
so what do you do? I mean, if HIPAA is such an important thing, why aren't they enforcing this stuff? Why aren't they checking? But for everybody else, for everybody that's not in a compliance or a regulated industry, they're winging it because there's no punishment if they get screwed.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
I think,
lose it.
you brought up FTC, which I think is going to be a very interesting one to follow because there are a lot of industries that you don't think of as needing to comply with some type of cybersecurity compliance. And yet the FTC is coming in and adding more and more all the time. The one that I just learned about was CPAs and accountants
Yeah.
is a big one, primarily for me because that is, there's a lot of small to medium sized CPAs out there that MSPs service.
Yep. CPAs are fun because of all the financial data, and a lot of them have moved to the cloud now. So it's there's stuff local or there's stuff in their own cloud storage we got to watch out for. Car dealerships. I never really thought about the car dealerships. We have one as a client, and they're great, but they're covered by FTC, and they have a crap load of personal data on people who've bought cars and service and everything else.
Yep.
It's stuff you got to protect, and of course, you get into the financial institutions. I have one that's SEC, have to be SEC compliant, but they have a compliance officer, so they're easy to deal with because we just go in and we talk to them and we make sure all the ducks are in a row, and they're one of the best clients to deal with because they know what they've got to have.
Right.
Everybody else is kind of like, I don't know. The orthodontists have to be FTC safeguard compliant. And when you explain that to them, they go, "Why?" So that's frustrating because it goes back to HIPAA. They've never really had to care about HIPAA, and now they've got to care about FTC,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't think so.
Now, I'm guessing with the orthodontists, it's because they usually have payment plans.
Bingo. Yep. Yep. And actually, one of my clients is a mortgage company, and I talked to them about FTC, and they went out and talked to all their mortgage company friends, and they all said, "Yeah, we're not doing it." So it's like, okay, I'm going to be over here, and if you guys get breached, I don't know who you are. No hablo inglés.
All right. So Tom, I need to take a little break to, mention our sponsor again. And so if, you want to go get a drink of water, feel free.
I'll go
And
get a drink.
I'll be right back. Hey everybody, thanks again for watching All Things MSP. Want to mention our sponsor for
Whew. I got upstairs, got a drink, and came back down right in
There.
time.
Well, the good thing about running all of this is I saw you come back into frame, so I knew we were good.
Excellent.
All right. So, Uncle Marv, who, by the way, his live stream is directly after this one at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So go check that out as as soon as we're done here. Um, he says law firms with insurance clients are being forced to have insurance and have security requirements before they get new cases. That's an interesting one too, because law firms, again, another big client base for MSPs.
Yep. I'm kind of waiting for the insurance companies to tell everybody, unless you have this in place, we're not insuring you. And I mean, you have to have certain things in place to have cyber liability insurance. I'm waiting for that to come down to you want insurance in general, you have to have all this stuff in place.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's interesting there is eventually I think we might even see cyber insurance go away and just become part of regular business liability insurance.
Yep. And in my experience, and I'm not saying every insurance company is this way, but getting the information from the insurance companies on what they expect is not fun.
No.
So you're going, people are going out and buying cyber liability policies. And then when you reach out to the carrier and say, hey, what do you want us to do in case of a breach? What are you going to enforce? What are you looking for in case of a breach? We want to make sure that we're covered in case something happens. And they're just like, I have no idea who you are. I'm not talking to you.
Hmm.
So it's going to be very interesting. The handful of insurance companies that I've reached out to have not been forthcoming with the information that we need to make sure that the clients are compliant. And if they do have a problem, they're not going to get their claim denied.
So do you think maybe at some point the FTC, because the FTC does regulate insurance, steps in and says these are the requirements?
I hope so. I mean, I know it's money and I know everybody hates being forced to do stuff, whatever. But if you don't protect yourself, and this is a lot of the people that we deal with, they're not big corporate companies with a bunch of shareholders, everything else. There are people that have built their businesses from the ground up. You're going to lose everything. You're going to
Yeah.
lose whatever retirement you had. You're going to lose the income. And if you have a breach, you know, it's not just the breach that's the problem. Your reputation is in crap. People are going to know about this. Now, at the same time, and this is the thing that scares me, if they're one of my clients and they have a breach, guess who else looks like crap? So even doing all of the work you're supposed to do to keep everybody secure, who's going to listen when you go, no, we had everything in place. They were supposed to do all this stuff and they didn't. And that's I was going to get here earlier. I think at some point we're going to have to start firing people. And then I wonder who's going to pick them up. I know somebody out there will pick up these clients and run with it.
Right.
And what happens when they do and then they are breached and the little provider goes out of business? So they're going to hurt themselves by picking up people who don't want to be secure.
Right.
And I mean, I wouldn't want to be sued for something like that. So it
No.
kind of blows my mind the little providers want to do that.
Well, because they don't understand the risk, right? They haven't been
Yep.
through it. I mean, you and I, we've
I've been through it. So this was years ago. We had a client that they hired a guy for a position and the guy had IT experience. So they told us, hey, we're going to have this guy take care of our server. And we went,
yep.
great. And then the guy screwed up replacing a dead hard drive and lost all the data. And the owner of the company was in my office going, you should have known. I'm like, how would I have known? You didn't pay us to manage it. I didn't have an agent on it. I would have known anything. I'm not psychic. So you run into stuff like that. And it's, on one hand, it sucks because I feel for the guy. And on the other hand, I'm like, dude, it's not my problem.
Yeah. And a lot of this, we're talking about making their business better, right? not just being the tech guys. And so Eric Bowles in the house, Eric with a K.
Correct.
Um, and rightly he says we have to reframe the conversation. So many of us grew up in this industry talking about tech, talking about security. Back in, when we got started, we weren't even talking about security yet. Um, what they really care about is growing their business.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have to do is we have to talk about the business solutions and then just sell them the tech that's going to solve that. He followed that up with, we have to start looking at ourselves as business success partners, not managed service providers. How do you make your customer a better business, not just a better customer? And Eric, thank you for that. I was actually having a conversation with Gil Langston today. Some of you might know him. He was one of the head nerds over at SolarWinds with me. He's been in different security roles in the channel throughout the years. And we were talking about exactly that today, how the modern MSP has to be a business partner, not just a solution provider. And I forget who I was talking to the other day. I was talking to somebody else about how I actually see a gap starting to form where you see all of these companies that just care about the tech, the infrastructure, trying to scale up, becoming like what we talked about earlier, a very impersonal corporate entity trying to do
Yep.
this stuff. And then on the other end, you have the MSPs who act a lot more like consultants or business partners or, trusted advisors, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's where the MSP is going to stay successful, is if they become that business partner that Eric's talking about, right?
Yep.
Because the big impersonal company isn't going to understand their business like another local small business owner.
Yep. I agree. We've moved from MSP to TSP to BSP, which is fun. Um, but it was weird when we first made that transition. It was like, what do I know to tell anybody how to grow their business or help them grow their business? But we've been around 21 years now.
Right.
I can tell you. At one point, I joked about writing down everything I did wrong, or writing a book about everything I did wrong. I think I can get it onto a pamphlet now. But we can talk about what are you trying to do, where are you trying to go, and how can we help you get there based on what let's have that conversation.
Yep.
And in the instances where I have that conversation, they grow like crazy. And it's, they don't have to worry about certain things, we worry about it for them. And the conversation, the communication is open. So if there's a problem, you can say, hey, we're seeing this, you're seeing this, and or hey, we don't think we're doing this right, or whatever. Open communication and constant communication get you places that there are a lot of people that just don't get there because they don't communicate. So having the open lines of communication and boundaries, we take care of your IT, you take care of your business, works very well.
Yeah. It and it really, we've called different things being sticky in the past. Like, becoming, managing their antivirus made you sticky, what, 15 years ago. And this is one of those things that I think will never lose its stickiness, right? If you help them grow their business by showing them how to properly leverage tech,
Yep.
you will always have a client because they will always trust you to have their best interest in mind and to know enough about their business to, when a new piece of tech comes along or a new problem comes along in their industry that tech can solve, you're going to be there proposing it to them so that they stay ahead of the curve and are in those, early adopters, early majority, type of framework that we talk about.
Yep. The ones that let us, or let whatever their technology service business solution provider, the ones that let that part be handled, they don't really care as much about the tech for tech's sake.
Right.
Um, they just want stuff to work so they can do what they've got to do, and it's a matter of, hey, we'd really like to do this. Okay, this is what we got to do. All right. I've dealt with too many people over the years that are like, what antivirus do we have? Doesn't really matter. It's just a matter. We've got you set up so you're
Right.
safe. Who cares? This is why we're doing it. I mean, if we decide to pull this out at some point, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Oh, Eric again.
Yep. He says there's another MSP within 2.5 miles with the same engineers and the same tech. Show
Yep.
you care about me. Show me I
Yep.
can trust you and I'll follow you anywhere. It's absolutely true, especially in the small to medium sized business market,
Yep.
because it's all about relationships.
Yep. I left the company I worked for up here 20, 21, let me see, 21, a little over 21 years ago. And I went to a company 2 hours south of here and had people follow me.
Yep.
So, and that's one of that's the main reason that we started this. I was working up here and living with my parents in Grand Rapids, working for another company. And I'm like, why am I doing this? People followed me. I took
Yeah.
care of them. As long as we take care of people, as long as we as an industry take care of the clients, you know, how long do you want to work in it? 20 years, 30 years? I know guys who've been doing this 30 plus years, owning their own businesses.
Yep. So I have an interesting story along those lines. I because I didn't know what I was doing. I had to shutter my first break fix. It was a break fix business back then. This was
Mhm.
pre MSP, and I did some C-level, CIO type CTO work for a couple of years. And when I came back and started my MSP, I got almost 50% of my old clients came back as soon as they found out I was open again.
Yep. If you take care of people, they will take care of you. You know, the vast majority of the time, I believe that is true. Every so often, you're going to have somebody that's just a stick in the mud,
Yeah.
whatever, and this, if you do have somebody that's a stick in the mud, or if you lose a client, don't take it personally. It's business. Figure out what you did wrong, figure out if there's anything you could have done differently, which sometimes there isn't, and just make sure you don't do it to anybody else if it's something that you could have fixed.
Right. And it also shows the importance of always having something in your sales funnel.
Yep.
You've got to always have clients in your sales funnel, even if it's not a lot, right?
Yep.
You don't have to have a lot. You just have enough to replace the ones that are eventually going to churn that's not your fault, right?
Yep.
Because that happens too.
That's one of the things that has scared me over the years is how big do I want to grow? And I have purposely kept things small because we were bigger. I had five more employees at one point, and we were only a couple $100,000 more profitable or more revenue than we have now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you've got to decide what you're really willing to deal with when it comes to employees, which you can also, I mean, as long as you lay your expectations out clearly, you can fix a lot of those problems. And that's where my pamphlet comes in. Don't do what I did. Um, set the expectations and hold people to them. It's the same with your employees as your clients.
Yes.
If you don't, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yep. And I mean, I'm huge on setting expectations just because I think expectations and communication are the two things that will keep you and your client synchronized and not let things grow to the point where you have an issue.
Mm-hmm. Communication, expectations, follow through, follow up, do what you tell them you're going to do. Same thing with the employees. Now, on the other side of that, the employees have to do what they told you they're going to do.
Yep.
So it's it's tough. Dealing with people is a challenge at times.
Yeah.
You know, set clear expectations and say, hey guys, you're either meeting it or you're not meeting it. What are we going to do to fix this? And one of the things that I learned is, fire fast. If you got to, hire
Yes.
slow, fire fast. The job that I took when I left the other company I worked for up here took 7 months to hire me. and I stayed there 4 months before starting my own. But they took 7 months to hire me. The engineering manager of that company called me every year for 6 years and asked when I was coming back. So I did something right. I
Right.
mean, it was kind of, I kept, stop it. No, stop it. That's whatever. But they were great people, and that's, I've tried to base my company on the way I was treated when I worked there. They were fantastic. They set expectations. They held up their end of the bargain. I held up mine. Clients were happy. I got to work for some fun people. That's it. And I know a lot of people who burn out with this job. The guys across the hallway from us in our office, guy who owns the companies, asked me the other day, how do you deal with burnout? Take a day off. You
Yeah.
gotta, you can't, you can't let yourself burn out. You got to take care of yourself. And
Yep.
I've done a horrible job of it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, neither did I until I switched sides of the channel, right? When
Mhm.
I switched sides of the channel, it became much easier for me to take time off. And then I started All Things MSP and I don't take time off anymore. But um no, I do. I do. But it's one of the things that I think is really important, and as small employers, which is what most MSPs are, they don't have a formal employee review process. And if they do, they just do the review part, and that doesn't do you any good. So as we're rolling into 2024, one of the first things that everybody should be doing is they should be setting expectations for every single one of their employees so that when it comes time to do annual reviews at the end of next year, the expectations were set early, one-on-one meetings were had regularly,
Yep.
maybe even have a mid-year review to see where people are at. But that way, you've set expectations, you're communicating where everybody is in those expectations. So, number one, if you have to fire somebody, it's never a surprise,
Right.
which is one of the great, I mean, if you have to fire somebody, one of the greatest feelings in the world is knowing that you don't have any fault. You set the expectation, you told them about the expectations, you told them they weren't meeting those expectations, you gave them ample warnings, and then, the logical conclusion to them not meeting expectations was they're not there anymore.
Yep. It's communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that's critically important to any employer. You don't have to be an MSP, but as an MSP, I think so many of us, because of the just the mindset, we're not great HR people.
Yep.
So,
It,
yeah, and I would just say, by the way, if anybody has any questions about that, reach out to me because I've done it a dozen times at different companies that I've been at. So,
and this ties right into, um, I felt like we were winging it until we found a peer group, and the peer group was eye opening because it was like, you're doing what? Um, when we joined our first peer group, they gave us 14, I don't even remember how many things to do when we got back to the office, including firing somebody. And we did. They said, you got a couple weeks to do this. We went back and did them all the first week. We fired a salesperson when we got back to the office because they weren't delivering.
yeah,
Um, there are so many things I've learned, and it's the really cool thing about this industry is how many people are willing to share. There are a number of Facebook groups for people working for IT companies,
yep,
MSPs, BSP, whatever. And if you ask a question, I think the vast majority of them will answer it.
yep,
How are you doing this? Why are you doing this way? This is why. And we, I think we took a step in late 2016. We got a PEO, which at the time was, whew, but it paid for itself. And
right,
having HR is invaluable.
yep,
We just went through a tragedy in our office, and we have HR, and they have counseling. You know, we
yep.
we have a problem. It's covered. So, how many people will talk about that? This was stuff that I had no idea was even out there until we got our PEO.
Yeah, and those are extremely helpful for people in small businesses that can't hire HR and don't have an expert who can do those things. And in my opinion, it's one of the best ways to handle it for especially a business, run by somebody like me who, tends to the ADHD spectrum and is not a box checker as well as he should be.
Yes, I have learned. It's been. I didn't learn this early enough, but I have learned the stuff that I am not good at. I need to find people to do.
Yep.
That's why there was a plumber here today, because I would have done it, and I probably would have done an okay job. But am I good enough at it to do it professionally and not have any leaks? Would I make more money doing what I do for a living? Yeah. So find somebody who's good at what you're not good at and have them do it, whether it's
Yep.
marketing or HR or anything. Find a partner. If you're not good at doing server stuff, find a partner.
Yep. I mean, that's why we do what we do, right? Because we are good at that part. We need to, follow our own recommendations. Sometimes it's
do,
hard.
do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
I've gotten better.
I think we all have. I think it's one of those things that if you don't go to school and learn that in a business course,
Yep.
you learn it on the outside, at just the school of hard knocks. And, we've been through it. I spent 17 years self-employed, 10 of them
Mhm.
in a business that I had to shut down because I made a huge mistake and put all of my eggs in one basket with one large client that nothing went wrong necessarily. They just decided to retire and sell the business. And then the new owners moved it out of state.
That'll do it.
So, yeah. So anyway, not a great place to leave it. So Tom, give us something, more inspirational to end this with tonight in terms of what the average MSP should be doing next week to get ready for 2024.
Write down everything you haven't done yet that you need to get done and work through it. But when you write it down and when you work through it, don't look at the whole list. Take it piece by piece. Because I know that if I have a list of things I have to do, I will look at the list and go, crap, where do I start? Break it up and attack it one piece at a time. And that way you have a better chance of getting through it. And then in the other thing that, and I've said this before, don't be afraid to say no. So next year when you have clients going, well, I don't want to do that, okay, then we don't want to deal with you. Don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to fire somebody.
Yep. All right. So Tom, we didn't have time to go through the studio. Maybe next time. Degley actually just posted he wanted you to play something.
Oh, geez.
Maybe next time.
I have a gig
And
next week. I'll live it. I'll live stream it.
well, let us know, and we'll tell everybody on All Things MSP that you're live streaming all of your
Sweet.
musical talents. All right, sir. I'm gonna go put you off into the green room and shut this down.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us again this evening. Great conversation. A lot of things to take in, a lot of things to think about. So, as you're getting ready to go into 2024, write those things down that you've been meaning to do and haven't done. Even put them on some type of schedule, make it real. Put them on your calendar so that, you're reminded of them in 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it is, because you can't do everything next week, right? You have to plan some of these things out. So, do some of that organization, take the time to spend some quality time over the holidays, make sure you don't have that burnout like we talked about. And, if you have questions, like Tom said, there are, several Facebook groups out there. We're just one of them, right? You've got IT Business Owners Group. You've got Everything MSP. You've got a whole bunch of other ones. Obviously we love for you to interact in our group, but, sometimes you got to find the answer elsewhere. So this MSP community is different from everyone that I've ever been involved with, and really just enjoy how much everybody's willing to help. Tom's willing to come onto a live stream and talk about his business in detail and talk about how different things have worked for him and different things have not worked for him. So, join the conversation, be a part of the group. If you haven't, it's All Things MSP on Facebook, or you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also follow us on LinkedIn if you want to. We've got a page over there, and please don't forget to